Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. Blackpool suffer away day blues once again as they fall short to a 1-0 loss to Plymouth Argyle. A second half quick goal from Boateng ensured Blackpool fell to another defeat and they couldn't find themselves an equaliser, let alone get the victory. A frustrating game, a little bit of a better first half, but we're going to get into all of the detail. And finally, joining us again is Kurt. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm okay. I was kind of hoping to come back to a pod with a win, but we'll be waiting a couple of months for that at this rate. So, yeah, lovely weekend in Plymouth. Yet again, another away day ruined by the football, as per usual.
Yeah, I have to say, fair for travelling, mate. That was and to all the Blackpool fans who made some decent noise. Yeah, didn't get you just rewards, and it was to a team which I will go into. You know, I'm not saying Plymouth are a bad side at all, but it was a team who was obviously low on confidence, and we really should have taken advantage of at least. But we'll get into that in a second. A late substitution. Powell has got to attend his daughter's netball game or additional netball game that they weren't expecting. So Powell is not coming on tonight, but Martin, the ever trustworthy co-host, is with us. Hopefully no iPads fall on the floor today, Martin, just like Blackpool's defence.
Do you know, I've just spent the day in Horwich at a school right behind their stadium, and it did not inspire me for Saturday. I didn't even see any Bolton shirts to even sort of have a bit of banter with. It was all Liverpool and Man United. So, yeah, I hope it's an omen. I wasn't expecting to go there today, just like I wasn't expecting to be on this pod. But luckily, I was in the stands eating my pie, and I was able to get warmed up and come down.
Yeah, well, hopefully, Horwich isn't inspiration because we are playing at Bloomfield Road. Yeah, we'll get into the Bolton game with a guest just past 8:30. Welcome everybody in the chat. Please get involved. Let us know your thoughts and feelings on the Plymouth game as and when we talk about it, Kurt. But let me just share my screen. Foot Mob has this lineup horrifically wrong, but we can talk about the lineup nonetheless. I'll just share my screen with everybody so we can all see. Yeah, as we can see, it was unchanged, Kurt. I don't really want to go through the whole team, but I will. We continue to play Brown at right back and Coulson at left back, despite some pretty poor displays against Mansfield. Ihekwe, obviously, and Casey are two that we can't really avoid at the moment, alongside Bloxham and Hamilton on the wings, with three in the middle with Honeyman, Evans and Morgan, and Taylor up front. Kurt, was it a Bruce said, go and show me what you can do type thing and say sorry to the fans and go out there and put in a performance? Or was it a blind faith that the selection's right and he expected a lot different to what he got?
It can only be that. There's no other reason for it, because if you watch the Tuesday performance, you'd probably strip 5 or 6 of them out of the team if you had the numbers on the bench to do it. I like Brown as a footballer. I think he's got the right mentality, right commitment. He's about as much of a right back as I am. He's, a professional right back, because I'm not a professional right back, and he certainly isn't. And he'll give it his all, but positionally all over the shop. So that one in particular, where it comes down to sort of the defence integrity, well, immediately is lapsed. I mean, we saw, and part of the problem, with this selection is that Coulson and Brown, they're not going to go past the halfway line too often because they're too worried about their defensive responsibilities. You watch Imre in the last sort of 5 minutes. That's what we're kind of hoping from a Blackpool team, is he's going to be up there causing problems and getting involved. So I find it pretty criminal that we had 2 right backs on the bench, and presumably they could have either done a half each or one of them done 60 minutes. So there's question marks there. And as for the rest of it, I don't think we have the numbers. We don't have centre backs to replace. We're not going to change the goalkeeper. That's very clear. And we're not going to change any of the front 3 because they're the only sort of front 2, Honeyman and Taylor. You're not going to change them. CJ is a total different topic. So, yeah, pretty disappointed. As soon as I saw the lineup, I knew what was coming, to be honest. It can't be that team this weekend, that's for sure.
Martin, I'll come to you in a second, Kurt, but I just want to stay with you. We haven't got Person on the bench, but we've got Eboué, we've got Hansen, we have, like you say, the two right backs that can do, potentially even Lyons can do 60, and Imre did the last 30 anyway, or 20. We absolutely could have changed it back to a 4-4-2 and actually give some fresh players, the opportunities to shine against a team that we desperately needed to attack. We use the word, I think someone put in the group, put confidence givers, aren't we? That, they were dead on their feet with their confidence, and an early goal, like you said, because the Plymouth fans were edgy, why not? But, granted, not a striker, but blocks them up with Taylor with two natural wingers, like me and Martin discussed on the pod Wednesday or Thursday, and just kept to our structure, and that would have enabled maybe an Evans to not start and get some minutes rest, or I don't want Morgan to be rested, but Morgan could have been rested, and Brown could have come in and added some energy into that midfield. So there was a lot he could have done. So does it go back onto the point where he was saying go and show me what you can do, and now Saturday obviously should be completely different.
The problem is that Bruce said that we're going back to sort of the simple basics of football, right? So you put people in their comfortable positions, and for me, it should be a case of if you don't perform, you don't keep the shirt. What message does that send to our new signings that are sat on the bench? Especially those two wingers. I don't think we've seen enough of Hansen to say whether he could or couldn't be any good. I also don't think he's had the best support in a natural fullback. I don't think Coulson's a natural fullback. I'm not actually sure what he's a natural at. He has his moments where he has fantastic games, but then in the other aspect, so Coulson's had a few stinkers, and then why is Ashworth sat on the bench? It feels like the wrong message is being sent to the wrong players, especially when you start to play players out of position in their position. I mean, Andy Lyons, is he being protected from his injury? He can't be protected forever. There's too many question marks there over selection, where actually Bruce last season saw it a lot like we did. If it needed to change and this player needed to come in, generally it felt like it would happen at times. Whereas actually now it's when the obvious is smacking him in the face, which is the same as what happened with Critchley. Stubbornness turned in, and then you get periods of results like this because you're not willing to change it and not do the obvious that's in front of you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Martin, when Bruce came in last year, I think, I can't remember if it was Hamilton or someone got dropped almost immediately. And there was a couple of players that got dropped. I know Penno started a few games and then didn't start after a couple of mistakes, and Hamilton got dropped almost immediately. I think even Husband got dropped at some point. So he was quite ruthless like that. My thoughts are with Kurt. Like Lyons, we said this last time, has just spent his summer and is having a life-changing recovery from an injury which he's desperate to get back from. And then we continue to play a fairly, not immobile, but like Kurt said, I don't think he went past the halfway line once. So therefore, he's not that sort of play you want in a 4-5-1 or a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. It's not that kind of defender. And Coulson, by his own admission, isn't a left back. He's more of a left wing back, maybe pushing a little bit more, but a left wing back certainly more naturally. So we're not playing to players' strengths, but not only that, he's allowing us to. He said himself he couldn't eradicate, and he still can't eradicate these mistakes. He said he couldn't do it last season. He's not doing it this season. Well, it's his own fault. At the end of the day, if you're playing a centre midfielder at right back, and a left wing back, a left back who's not had a good start to the season, when Ashworth has shown many times that he played exceptionally well when he came onto the pitch, then why is he not doing that?
I was just as shocked as everybody else when I saw that lineup. I mean, Mansfield was a really poor performance, and you keep the same team if you've had a near miss or you've performed well. But when you've played like they did on Tuesday, you change it. And look, what else can you say? You've got central midfield has been our problem for 2 or 3 seasons. Somebody who can get a foot in, be mobile, get around, get up and down the pitch, whatever. Do the basics of football and maybe score the odd goal, whatever. And Brown, I think, is that guy. 400 grand, and all right, maybe if there's an emergency and he thinks he can play it right back and he's a team player, you stick him there. But as you guys have said, he had options, and he completely robs our midfield by playing an unnecessary player at right back. He doesn't need to. I can only imagine that he just doesn't rate Lyons. He's seen a bit of him and just thinks he's not strong enough. He doesn't want to give Ashworth a go, and Imre's just come back from injury. But yeah, between the two of them, as Kurt rightly says, they could have played 45 each or 60 minutes and 30, whatever. It's just appalling. It's appalling to play as badly as we did at Mansfield and then go with the same team. And it's just when he had other options. And we've signed 2 exciting wingers, which have been crying out for all season. And the element of surprise would have been there if you played Buey, because no one really knows what to expect from him. He's doing little cameos and he doesn't play him until he brings them on later on. But a start for him might have shaken the whole thing up a little bit. But it just smacks of I've run out of ideas. But if you run out of ideas, don't go with such a bad idea that didn't work so well the last game. It's mind-boggling. It's not something that an experienced manager would do, you would think. But
I'm beyond thoughts about it. Like you said, we've spoken about it to death. But it's a go and show me what you can do kind of thing. But like you said, just play Brown where we wanted him to play in the first place, where we got excited about signing him. The poor man's now potentially a scapegoat along with a couple other people saying he's not a very good footballer, but he's absolutely not playing in his.
Well, people who say that are frustrated, aren't they? They're frustrated. Yeah. He might not look like a very good right back, but for Leyton Orient, he's been a very, very good defensive central midfielder for 2 or 3 seasons, and we're robbing him and the team of his best position, and also he can't hit the ground running because he's playing in a stupid position he shouldn't be in the first place. So it affects so many things doing that,
and then being carded out in front of the media.
Yeah.
Taylor Lawson, another stupid team selection, 3 fullbacks on the bench, and Brown at right back is stupid. And we're also playing every centre midfielder we've got at the club. So if one gets injured, we can revert back to a 4-4-2, but it's taken quite a big risk. John said Lyons should have started at right back, and what's wrong with Ashworth at left back? Exactly what we just said. Should have Lyons been Ashworth, Brown at CDM, and Honeyman and Morgan in second mids. Yep. Evening, Mike. Nice for you to join us, mate. CJ is absolutely useless. Yeah, agree. And then Tony, as we both said, it's like Neil Critchley, which is worrying. Quite a few comments about CJ not being in the starting lineup, which Kurt disagrees with massively, I'm sure. Kurt, we'll talk about the early chances for our goal, then even starting in the second minute with an early corner forced back across goal by Alex Mitchell, and a few chances before we talk about the Tolej one in the 10th minute as well. But early signs of us not getting going immediately away from home, and kind of expected Plymouth chasing the victory, of course, first win of the season. But for us, it was probably, we need to wake up a little bit here.
Yeah, a little bit. But when you're playing against a team that's an ex-championship team who's lost 4 in a row, against another side that's lost 4 or 5 out of 5 or whatever our record was, they're going to come out all guns blazing. They've just signed a new striker for £1.2 million, which is about £1.1999 million too much, by the way. Just getting out there. He is absolutely garbage. So I don't know if we're trying to play a game of who can spend the most money on a striker who can't score. We're currently equal on that front. But they were well up for it. Some of those players had some interesting first halves. I think that Benarous at left back was he passed the ball out of play about 4 times in about the first 15-20 minutes, and after that first 15-20 minutes, when they weathered the spell and had their chances, you could feel the sort of energy start to evaporate around the ground, and it was like there was a nervousness there that any Blackpool goal would have been 1-0 and game over, I think, because it would have just killed them. It would have killed their season, I think. It was that much, that was so important to them. So you had to expect it to be like that in the first 15-20 minutes, and you have to weather the storm. And actually, I thought we stood up okay. I thought Peacock Farrell and, I think 6.3 is exceptionally harsh compared to some of the other numbers that I can see on there. He made a wicked save from Tolaj. So, overall, it's kind of what you come to expect, away from home, and then you can find your counter-attacking opportunities.
I was just going to be talking about Tolaj and that, and the amount of money that's being spent. We already alluded to it, but the only real, and I agree with you, by the way, I think, like we said, it is expected. The only massive worry, I suppose, and another gape and hole in the defence is when the ball fell to him after we were carved open. But me and Martin spoke about this with the Mansfield pod. The average starting position of the two centre backs, as well as the left and right back, which you expected at right back, but maybe not so of Coulson, is they're not a really cohesive line, and they're kind of like the two wing backs kind of pushed forward but didn't really commit. And then we had Casey and Hickway. Hikway's, as Casey's position is way different to Hickway's, and they don't really stay together that often. And that was case in point, with that pass where they could have put three players up front and ran through that gap, and it created an opportunity which ultimately should have been 1-0 to them.
Yeah, I don't feel like any of these defenders are Casey. Yeah, I like Casey a lot, but I don't think the rest of them are "you're not scoring today" type defenders.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I was just looking at the release list, players that are free agents, and when you look at it, what we probably could have done with is someone like a 35, 36-year-old Richard Keogh that actually is a good footballer towards the end of his career. I saw Ben Mee on that list, that type of centre back. Do you get what I mean? Rather than what we've gone for here, because we still would have paid him decent money as well. Whether we could have afforded it, I don't know. But my point is, rather than giving a 4 or 5 year contract or whatever we've given here, is it 4 years we've given? 3 years? I'd rather have got 2 years of a proper experienced pro that actually I'm going to shepherd this and shut up shop. I don't feel like he's that sort of guy. He does a lot of time moaning Hickway. Him and Evans were at it the whole game, shouting at each other, not constructive, like screaming at each other, and they did it at Exeter as well. But the one thing about Peacock Farrell was a lot more vocal in this game. This is why I think his particular aim is extremely harsh. His long kicking is great, actually probably a little bit too long at times, and that save was brilliant. He couldn't have done anything for that goal. Outside of that, what did he do wrong?
Not much at all. It's probably based on, like you say, saves, etc. And conceding a goal takes a little bit off you. But I agree with you. I think Mansfield and this game is certainly, and the back end of Huddersfield as well, to be fair, he's starting to grow in a lot. And I think that's why Bruce has obviously continued to stick with him, and probably the only right decision to stick with him, and that Bruce has come to fruition. Martin, it was a flurry of chances of Blackpool. Hickway had a header from a corner. We had a couple of shots.
Mm-hmm.
We had a beautifully worked move just after the Taylor miss with Honeyman dipping it out to Morgan, which was we saw some points last season, didn't we, with maybe Apter or Carey tipping that ball out from the corner and slamming some shots from the edge of the box, which is great to see. And if the opposition doesn't wake up to it, one of those out of probably 5 or 6 will either cause a bit of chaos or go in, which is great. And that obviously caused a bit of chaos with creating another corner. But the most notable chance was obviously for Taylor. I think on the day I was screwing at more the striker. I slept on it for a few days and watched the highlights back today, watched the game back, and I think he's expecting the ball right across goal so he can just tap it home. His run is too fast. The ball spins back a little bit. He then has to drag his leg back and stop, and then he kind of pushes the ball wide, and it's kind of a smart finish in some respects because he's going for the opposite corner, of course. It looks a bad miss, but ultimately I don't really think it's his fault. I don't know how I'm not trying to justify the miss at all. I think he still should score. But I think in that moment, he's expecting the ball completely differently to how it fell.
Well, no, I've watched it back like you because I wanted to sort of make sure I got my kind of, facts right about it. And I think you're right. It is the pass. He's expecting it, an intelligent footballer puts it right into his stride and he's able to finish it. He has to kind of, he has to maneuver himself to try and get a shot. And the idea he has to finish it is clever, but he's just wide. But I think the problem with this poor guy is that this is his third start, isn't it, including Vale in the Cup? It's the first chance I remember him having. I can't think of another chance he's actually been given or had. He's just fed on absolutely nothing. I know, you sometimes have to do some of the work yourself, but he's gone into a team that's got very little confidence, and it would have been like 100% success rate if he'd have scored that, because I literally think it's probably his only chance in a Blackpool shirt.
No,
and it comes, and the chances are at such a premium. The spotlight's on him because he has to bury it, because we're not exactly making a plethora of them, are we? So, the guy must wonder what he's come into, and I hope it doesn't destroy his confidence too much.
I also think Martin as well. How unlucky is he that he's not coming in and playing alongside Ennis? And the energy that Ennis has got, because he could have fed off of that energy, that positivity, that press. Because Ennis is come back really fit. He's lost a bit of chunk. I don't know how to explain it.
At Rovers, they thought he was a little bit overweight. I know that much. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We missed him so much, and we'll miss him again Saturday. Hopefully, not too much. But yeah, I'd love it if I was Taylor. I'd love to play with Ennis more than anybody else. Definitely. Yeah.
My concern, I think they're both. I think I know you got reservations about Taylor, Kurt. I'm happy to carry on talking about him for a little bit, but I think the chance itself isn't easy. And Martin's right. I think he got hung up to dry against Port Vale. He's obviously started a couple of games, but Mansfield, we were dog, and we didn't play to strengths at all. And against Plymouth, we got the ball back down a little bit, and the ball was pinging around the box a little bit. And maybe you could press a little faster, but I generally think he's regaining his fitness, and you see that a lot with players. When they've come back into the team or they've started to play football again, you do see them growing into the games. And I think against Plymouth, he was certainly a little bit better. My only concern with playing those two together is, one, how do we utilise them? Because Peacock Farrell, we've sung his praises. But on the flip side to that, if we do play long balls to him, or Evans pings the ball forward countless times, like Husbands used to last campaign, why are we going to be doing that? We're not getting the balls into the wings. We're not playing through the middle to play him in behind. And when we do, like Brown to Ennis as an example, we do create mayhem. But my concern is Fletch doesn't really hold up the ball very well. Taylor's not made for holding up the ball. And Ennis is probably our strongest player with his back to goal. I think he did really well against Huddersfield when he's backing off his man and holding off, Watmore and a few others. But if we're going to utilise the wings or play through the middle and get those two involved, I think is a deadly partnership. But Kurt, and I'll come to you, I've had real concerns with the way we set about the pitch and, what kind of way are we setting out to win games? Because at the moment, and I will talk about this in a second, other than the first half at Plymouth, I haven't really seen how we're going to attack the league this year, and that's really concerning for me.
A couple of things on what you just said, right? So you go long ball, you have to pick up the second ball, right? So if you lose that header, you have to have willing runners. And one of my issues from what I've seen from Taylor, and I think Tony said in the chat, he hasn't had a pre-season, right? So he's trying to preserve energy so that when the time comes, he uses it. That's fine. Ennis is the other side. Ennis is, when he's pressing, he's pressing. When he's running at 100 miles an hour, which is the difference of what we've seen. And it might be a bit of a detriment to Taylor in that, one, he's got the price tag on his head. Two, I've not seen a lot of, especially against Mansfield, he had no interest in challenging for the ball. So when I talk about winning the second ball, we always have to win the second ball because it's always a second ball that's come from them. It's not like we flick the ball on or we've caused a bad clearance or something like that. They had all the time in the world against Mansfield, and similar at the weekend, right? Honeyman was having to go up there. So I get what you mean. But the other side of it as well is that he's only ever going to be effective because if you have a midfield that's willing to make runs and to carry the ball, look how effective we were towards the end of last season when Kerry got the ball and he was willing to drive with it and move with it. We didn't have that on Saturday in our wide men, and we didn't have it with our fullbacks, and we definitely didn't have it with our centre mids. It was sideways, backwards, long ball, lose it, they get to go have. That's how it's been. That's been the patterns of play. We need more ball carrying players and willing to make that pass, which will then lead to play more movement further around the pitch. Because otherwise, what happens is players are just making pointless runs and they're never being seen. For me, Taylor's got more time in the bank, right? He's got way more time, to write him off. My concern was around the energy levels, the pressing, and the challenging for the ball.
Yeah. Excuse me. If you watch his goals versus for Wigan, should I say, in transition, when he gets the ball sort of pinged to him in behind, and when the ball's played across the box, he tends to be there a lot of the time, and that's why I think the chance against Plymouth was probably something different than what I was expecting. He couldn't adjust quick enough, but I'm excited to see what he can do. And I generally think that the Ennis red card has probably been the most, biggest punch to our season, because he looked an absolute animal in that first half. And I think against Mansfield and certainly against Plymouth, he would have carried on that trajectory. And now he's got to go again after the international break. So we're not going to see him for like a month worth of football. So it's frustrating he got that red card, and I really think the outcomes of these games and our thoughts and feelings around the team, ironically, would have been completely different because he changes the complexity of the team and the way we start to play football a little bit. I think with just playing Taylor up front and Bloxham, who's not a striker, as an example, it's kind of making us be limited. Although we could use our wingers as more forward players rather than what we're currently doing, and that's why we're the detriment to our own success at the moment, I think. But on that note, Martin, that's not what I'm talking about next. I'm talking about second half stutters. We sneeze when the second half kicks off and it's 1-0 to the opposition. I think someone on AVFTT broke this down, but we all kind of saw the same thing. Brown tells Bloxham to go and block off that quick throw. He doesn't react quick enough to the 1-2, and that leaves space in behind with, I think, a tackle. Forgot who the player was now, but kind of pokes the ball away back into their sort of half, and Boateng does the rest really with a Heckway kind of matching up his man, but then turns his back the wrong way and sticks out a leg, thinking it's going to do anything at all. But from a massive, successful, strong defender, you want to see him really get close to his man and do something to the ball. Instead, he kind of just lets him have the space to turn in and curl a decent shot past Peacock Farrell. Don't get me wrong, but he should never, ever, ever be there in the first place. It is another catastrophe at the back for Steve Bruce's side.
Well, you mentioned Heckway before, and I do think that Heckway's come here with that reputation that we've been talking about. He is meant to be a strong defender. I heard somebody on Radio Lancashire, I think it was Steve Eyre, talking about him, saying that, you know, he's that old-fashioned centre half that he's hard as nails. He gets stuck in. He's a really good defender. He's dogged. He stays tight to people. He's a threat in both boxes. But I haven't seen it, and I don't think anyone here has seen it. And I don't understand why we keep signing players and they come with this reputation. It seems to all fall to bits when they get to Blackpool. I don't know why, because he is that. He's meant to be that guy. He's meant to be that guy. Him and Horsfall are meant to be those sort of towering lamppost defenders that are absolute winners, and that, you know, God forbid that you come anywhere near me or I'll have you. And I'm not conceding goals, but and you're right. He argues a lot. He is Evans again. He's just arguing with people, and he looks like he's just thoroughly pissed off with the whole thing. And the goal is a catastrophe. Like I say, everyone switched off. We seem to have come back from half time not with it. People aren't doing the jobs properly, and then ultimately, you've got a big centre half that turns his back, and it is a smart finish, but it's just, and then it's a mountain to climb because we don't score bagfuls of goals at the moment. So I can't put my finger on how these things keep happening, because the personnel changes and the mistakes are still being made. We're a year into this now with the manager, but we still can't defend. So I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sure if I could solve it, we'd all be millionaires if we could put our finger on, and we could just fix it. But I don't get it. I don't get it. I expected much better than this defensively.
Kind of agree and disagree. I think Bruce is not a stupid man. I still love him. I still want it to work, but I don't think we were that bad last season. I've 87 0-0s in a row at home, and away from home we were very good. So I don't mind conceding when you win 3-1. I really don't care that much. It's nice to have clean sheets in the bank, but like I said, we've got a lot of them at home, and away from home you expect to concede as long as you're scoring, a few more goals than the other team, right? It all worked a little bit last season, not necessarily, we know why we didn't reach the playoffs.
But he's the one that keeps talking about it, saying we weren't very good last year.
My argument, Martin, is that he was saying, like last season, I can't eradicate it this season, but this season he's literally leaving the basics on the bench, which we've already spoken about.
Yeah.
We can eradicate stupid goals if you play a structured back four or whatever he wants to do, structured back five or back three with two wing backs, whatever he wants to do, really. He didn't eradicate goals last season. We didn't eradicate stupid goals last season. We conceded sloppy goals last season. This year, every set piece is a worry. Every single counter attack is a worry. Every single through ball is a worry. We can't seem to rectify just being criminal at the back at the moment. And I don't want to be completely negative with this, but the reason he's done that is because we have no structure at the back, because he's playing centre mids at right back and a wing back that is calf injured at left back with Casey and Hickway who can't run. Granted, and I'll just get up Tony's point here, and I agree with him. I'm convinced with a fit Imre and Horsfall, Eboué and Ennis back from suspension, we'll start to pick up, and we absolutely will. I think we'll pick up Saturday with Imre at right back, of course. But if Bruce is seeing what he saw last season, he made changes. We've spoken about this already, but he could just rectify it by trying something different. Mansfield or Plymouth was a perfect opportunity to do that. Play a right back at right back, play a left back at left back, or bring Ashworth into the centre if he's that worried about conceding goals. It's absolutely criminal to play that same team again. And granted, that could have happened if he made loads of changes, but it's just another sloppy goal, which kind of echoes why we can't keep playing the same back four all the time. So with Imre,
can we like I know we talk about football all the time, right? We talk about tactics and stuff, but at what stage do we question the characters of the squad and the bravery and the commitment? That's the first time I've seen a lot of booing directly at CJ Hamilton, and we'll talk about CJ, but he's an example of did you give 100% in that game?
Yeah.
And there's no way on this planet he did. And I could name a couple of others that did you give 100%? Were you that committed? Were you that brave? And by brave, I mean on and off the ball. So when defending, are you committed to the tackle? Are you committed to the header? When you've got the ball, are you committed to, I will watch a winger all day long that'll go and try and take his man up on at pace. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you're trying to create something. You're trying to do something. Not doing any dribbles at all as a professional winger in a football game is unacceptable, especially when you've been given the ball. I think we can talk about 4-4-2, 3-5-2, 6-4-2, whatever the formation is. Doesn't matter. If you don't have a set of I said this on the pod a year and a half ago. If you're not committed as a squad, the quality doesn't matter because you'll get beat by anybody, and you'll especially get beat by teams that have just come down from the Championship. That's why we struggle against Port Vales and the other teams, because when we play against Huddersfield, it feeds into our counter-attacking space, right? And we seem to be able to get ourselves up for the Huddersfield. When we think we're going to go against a lesser opposition, the mentality ain't there. And you no matter what sport you play, if you don't match the commitment of your opposition, you're going to struggle.
It's League One, isn't it? That is that personified.
Yeah, I could go on about it all day, but I ultimately am at the point where I don't really care about the personnel. The goalkeeper could have Steve Banks in goal for all I care. When the 10 players in front of him aren't committed to stretching that little bit, putting their foot in, giving the elbow, having a bit of character, having a bit of attitude, taking a shot, taking the game themselves. For me, I think there's a lack of positive characters in this team that are willing to do and die for the shirt. And we talk about James Husband and we talk about some of this stuff, but I don't think I've ever seen a performance from him. Very rare.
Tried. Yeah. No, we've come on to talk about this now, and I said this. I think on my not the pod account, my personal account, I said you can question Bruce all you like, but the commitment from those players was absolutely pathetic. And you're right. If you go into a hard day's work, like you said, Kurt, and you come home and you feel knackered, saying, "Look, I didn't have a good day. However, I couldn't have done anything more." Like you said, those players are kind of just happy, like when they did it last season. When we conceded, I think against Mansfield, they're laughing and joking at full time, like shaking hand and with each other and stuff, and not feeling any remorse for the fans and the club and stuff like that. I'm not saying you should be on your knees crying because it's just a league game, but all of these things matter. And I think you're absolutely right, Kurt. I can't put it into words much better. When you've got to die for 3 points, as a famous manager once says, and we've got about 2 or 3 players that are happy to do that.
Are they a squad, Tom? Do they like each other? I tell you what they could do with going out, getting really drunk with each other, getting into scraps with each other, and building a bit of character in that squad. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen them out on the Friday night in Plymouth. I bet they'd have played much better on the Saturday. There's something up with this group of players. And look, I was in the hotel at the weekend, and I was about, not that I was stalking them and getting signatures from any of them, but it did feel like there was a lot of individuals knocking around and they weren't hanging out with each other. Do you get what I mean? It didn't really feel that connected when I was there. And I wasn't trying to spend time with any of them at all because I would have said some of the similar things to what I've said tonight. I was tempted to barge in to see them, see if they kick off and then go, well, maybe you should take that attitude on the pitch then. but that's what I don't get the feeling this is a squad of players that massively likes each other and massively wants to play football with each other.
Well, that comes from the top, though, I think. Because we said this 2 years ago, though, about we've signed a load of new players and we still don't have a squad that are integrating or look like they are. But surely, like the people who are in charge of that have got to create a team atmosphere and encourage that, and not encourage individuality or players not getting on the coach and going off on the train back home to London or whatever. I know that can happen, but as an example, there's not a lot of togetherness. I get that vibe too, but where whose fault is that? Collectively, but someone's got to take responsibility for not creating that team ethos. Surely, what is it? What's wrong?
I don't think Aggers is the most inspirational bloke in the world, and I don't think he'll know what goes behind closed doors. And he offers absolutely next to nothing to this club as well. So I don't think it's just Bruce. I think, like you said, Martin, it comes from the top, but it's just maybe too many cooks, and there's not that unity there. Tomo would have got involved. Ollie would have certainly known everything about the players and what they did, etc. And we've had Critch and we've had these other managers, and we just haven't been able to unite the fan base with the team like that. And I think we saw that a little bit last season with Ennis and Fletcher and a few others, but it's always one shining light in the team at the moment, like Honeyman as an example, Ennis. But not every single player. You look down that pitch and go, I can't wait to watch all of these play. We're kind of just dreading it at the moment. We haven't got any connection with them once again, and I really hope it does kick into gear soon. Hoggies, but desire, commitment, being selfless, next joke, far too many worrying traits and characteristics in the starting 11. That's similar to the Critchley era second time around. There we go.
But the players are all meant to be here. They're meant to be desperate to play for Steve Bruce. Whether that's just hyperbole that's just rolled out in every single interview, but every single player that signed it said, "Oh, I'm here because the manager, he's a great player and he inspires me and I want to be here." They don't look like it, do they? Regardless of whether that's Bruce's fault or the players just not doing it, but it doesn't look like everyone's dying to be here. In fact, some of them look like they'd rather be anywhere else.
But as well, Martin, on top of that desire to be here, they don't look like they're given. They don't look like they're enjoying football at all.
Exactly.
Any of them.
I said that the other week. Yeah,
they need to. For me, there was a great video of CJ Hamilton. I know we keep talking about him when we last played Plymouth, and his dribbling. He's knocking the ball a decent distance. He's not dribbling with it at his feet and staring down at the floor. He's running at players within 10. Where's that gone? Where is the wanting to get a shot away? Where's the wanting to create something and do something? Is it are they too structured? Because that's what it was like in Critchley.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they too structured, or do they just not like each other? Whatever it is, when we've had other situations like this, say Grayson, when it was like we're nearly there. Like, we're going to get a result and we're going to batter someone 5-0 soon. It's going to happen. I don't. If anything, I feel like it can get worse, and that's why I don't massively think Bruce is the right person for this. We talk about manager bounces. I feel like it needs someone new to come in with these players to literally go, right, this is exactly how we play, with a bit of freedom. I don't personally. It doesn't feel like to me that we're going to get any better based on what I've seen this season.
No, I think sometimes these situations are very hard to come back from, and sometimes you're right. It does need like a whole new face to come in, like any business or company that's struggling. Sometimes you need to change the man at the top for people to be inspired. I don't know. I never saw this coming though in the summer. I never ever thought we'd be having this conversation, and it's very sad, really.
No, and I'm not someone that wants to change the manager all the time.
No, I don't like it either.
But a lot of people's posts saying, "Oh, people are impatient. People are this. People are this." But you have to see some routes to success. I don't see it. The only routes I see to success is Ennis running his arse off and scoring goals by just being brilliant. Outside of that, where's the creativity? We've got players that we were really looking forward to see that sat on the bench 80 minutes. And I spoke to Julian in the hotel on Saturday, and I said, I'll be honest with you, there's two things that are really worrying me. The team selection and the reaction to the game. It's really poor. You shouldn't be waiting to 70 minutes when you've watched 0 shots on target for 70 minutes. You should be giving them half an hour to impress. They're new signings. They should be on the pitch. And that Eboué should be get on the ball, do something. That's my only instruction to you. Get on the ball, do something. Any shot on goal. Same with the rest of the players. Create something. Get at them. And that is not what it feels like they're being instructed to do.
Yeah, and I think as well, you got an owner or any owner that spends a fair bit of money into a squad, and that investment is sat on the pitch not doing anything. You how long is it before you put your hands up and say, well, I'm funding this, and you're not utilising the tools that I've given you. It's just not right, is it?
Yeah. On that note, an inspiring note, we have a massive derby on Saturday, Kurt, and I know you're going to dip off just after we talk about this subject, but I'll come to you first so you can leave. Talk to us about what changes you want us to be made for Saturday. I know you said you don't care about formations, etc., but they often line up in a 4-2-3-1. I'm about to find out from our guests, how they've started the season, but they're very attacking side, and it might play into our hands a little bit. But what do you want to see on Saturday yourself?
I'd go 4-5-1, and I'd make it simple and get Imre at right back. And if he lasts 60 minutes and has to be replaced by Lyons, whatever, Ashworth for Coulson. I'd like to see a left back signed personally, but that might not happen. Same centre back pairing because we don't have much choice. And then what I would do is I'd get Brown to sit, and I'd have Honeyman and Morgan being able to play more, between the 8 and the 10 roles, and swapping between them and getting further forward. And then Brown can protect the defence. I think Evans needs a break and to kind of realise that he is droppable indefinitely. Yeah, and then I think personally, then you've got to have Bloxham on the right and Eberway on the left, and then swap them round. Why do we never swap wingers unless it's a substitute? Have 10-15 minutes, just swap sides, give them something to think about. I wish we'd be a little bit more dynamic, and then obviously Taylor up front, and hopefully Fletcher or someone on the bench. Bolton don't beat us at Bloomfield Road. That's the message this week. It has to be. That has to be the message to players. Bolton do not beat us at Bloomfield Road. Simple as that. I mean, there's got to be some sort of attitude around this. There's got to be some way to get into them to be like, they do not beat us at Bloomfield Road, whether it's 0-0, 1-0 to us. That's a simple message. And if they can't get that right, I think it's curtains for me. I think Bruce has to go and someone else has to come in. We can't be on 3 points after Saturday with no signs of any better performance. What do? We go 10 games without another win, and we're 16 points, 20 points off the playoffs after September or October. Something's got to change.
Virtual round of applause for Kurt. You won't get this on AVFTT, Kurt, but you will get it on the podcast. Kurt, stop talking sense.
I've paid him off. It's fine. Thanks.
Is that your default account? Martin, just over to you about what changes you want to see. Just before you go, Hoggy said it will never happen, but 4-3-3. I'm in agreement with Hoggy. Bruce isn't going to do this either, but Imre, Casey, Ekway, Ashworth, Brown, Honeyman and Morgan, Taylor, Bloxham and Hansen. I think
it's a variation, right, of what I was saying. 4-3-3, 4-5-1. It's a variation.
Yeah,
you're putting people.
You could be in and out of formation as well.
Yeah, exactly. In attack it's 4-3-3, in defence it's 4-5-1. But what I think Hoggy's getting after is you're playing players in the comfortable positions. Let's keep it as basic as that.
As basic as I thought Bruce would keep it. But Martin, are you in agreement with Kurt, or would you go to a 4-4-2 with Fletcher if he's back?
No, I like the 4-5-1 or 4-3-3 variation, whatever. Obviously, it changes, doesn't it, when you've not got the ball, etc. But I'd like to see Hansen play because he's come with a really good reputation. Birmingham fans love him. We've not seen the best of him, but he could be that ball carrying player, to get us up the pitch like Sonny Carey was. Just somebody who's got a trick about them. And they didn't pay £1.5 million from a year ago for nothing. And I'm, I don't want him to come here and turn in and lose all his confidence and turn into a bit part player who can't get any rhythm. Players like that need to play. They need rhythm. And Eberway is exactly so. I'd love to see that those two start, or blocks, and just width and someone who's going to run at players, because I don't think Bolton. I think Bolton are gettable. They're not a fantastic side, are they? They may well develop into one, but they're still not anywhere near the finished article. And I think with the right attitude, there's 3 points to be won on Saturday, without a doubt. I again, it could be Huddersfield where we turn up and have a great attitude towards the game and win. But what worries me is the next one against Northampton or whatever. That's what worries me, the attitudinal part of it, where we'll be inspired against a better side with a packed Bloomfield Road, but away at Northampton, are we up for it? So that's a test of character, isn't it? So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we won on Saturday. But I'd like to see that kind of formation, just something different and a bit of a surprise factor for the opposition.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Kurt, you heading off, bud?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you
Hopefully
for-
Saturday we turn a corner, but yeah, it's going to go one by the other, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, it's certainly a big game for Bruce. If he's the fall guy for whatever decisions are being made behind the scenes, etc. He is the manager, and against Bolton at Bloomfield Road is the game you want to win, isn't it? And if you lose that, then sometimes there is no going back. So we'll certainly see, Kurt. But thanks for coming back, mate, and enjoy the rest of your week and Saturday.
Thank you very much. Up the ball. See you later.
Right. Joining us from the Fan Zone podcast, the Bolton Wanderers podcast. That's a long. I'll call it the Bolton Wanderers podcast. Welcome, Cole.
My pleasure.
My lovely co-host Kurt there said you're not a very good side. No, Martin, you just said you're very not good.
No, I said they're not yet a fantastic team, but they may well have to be one.
He's right.
You're a work in progress, aren't you?
Absolutely, Martin. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I still look at your side. It might be a work in progress. Don't get me wrong, but I still look at your side and think you've got. You've just got a plethora of options, and you're not playing very well. Are not playing very well at the moment. I see, your lineup. Don't get me wrong. I know you've drawn, I think, what feels like loads of games 1-1 at the moment. I know it's 3 in a row, but and you're finding it hard to potentially win games. And Saturday you should have probably lost, considering how late the goal was.
Mm-hmm.
But just talk to us about, first and foremost, how Shuey's getting settled in at the club. Obviously, is a big season for him. Expecting to get promotion. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I don't think he wants anything less than the playoffs. But just tell us how he's settling in and how kind of he started pre-season as well as the campaign so far.
Yeah, of course. First of all, Tom, Martin, thanks very much for having me on. Greatly appreciate that. Currently in the stadium's hotel doing this live podcast. So
if I knew that, I wouldn't let you in.
So if the signal goes, then I do apologise. I'm relying on the Radisson hotel Wi-Fi, so do my best. So season so far. I'll start with Shuey actually, because that's what you asked me originally. We are obviously willing to, as a fan base, allow him a fresh start for this season. Obviously, he took charge kind of 3/4 of the way through last with a squad that clearly wasn't his. As you can see on the screen in front of you, things have changed rather significantly. We've got rid of some of the players that have been here a while, who was kind of a more senior under Ian Evatt, the likes of Ricardo Santos, Gethin Jones, other players like Nathan Baxter, Aaron Collins have left the building as well. Essentially a bit of a clear out per se. And we've signed, I think, like 10 or 11 players, gents. So there's an element of gelling needed to allow these lads to flourish. But as that graph rightly points out, we're playing a 4-2-3-1 this season, so we've scrapped them wing backs, and obviously we're kind of utilising Shuey's experience in League One to get the best out of the squad. It's pretty exciting. We're playing really good stuff. It's just not clicked just yet, but we are due to give somebody a bit of a pasting. I can't really see that being you lads at the weekend, given you rightly said before, we never win at Bloomfield Road, and I think it'll be a tricky game despite what you guys are going through. But overall, I think, I'm okay with the season start. Listen, it's not been perfect, but we're literally 5 games in, aren't we? So nothing really too much to worry about just yet.
Yeah, and just how I know you've drawn quite a lot, but you are top of the XG I've seen on a few Bolton Wanderers podcasts, and how it works now, the algorithm. You get like random people just talk about, like you say, surely something's got to change soon. We'll dip straight into the squad really, and I know the results, like you say, haven't been the same, but I think your XG is 2 per game or something like that. You sit top of the league of that, so you're obviously creating chances with.
Absolutely.
I was quite not shocked. I'm not saying he's the most incredible player in the world, but Sissoko joined you. I think despite his underlying stats not being great at Plymouth, I think he was someone who tried to make things happen all the time, and that's really important on the wings. So him and Cozy Dewberry on the wings with Randall sitting in the middle and Burstow. up front, they make for a really exciting four. Obviously, with Simons and Erahan in just behind them, I think you've got the foundations with a lot on the bench as well of being able to stay quite consistent this year. But going forward, it looks quite frightening this campaign.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to it all. I think you mentioned the bench. Having players like Aaron Morley and Josh Sheehan to come off the bench at the weekend completely changed the direction of the game. And yeah, they are really, really good League One footballers. Obviously, we've got Sam Dalby up top as well, who is just coming back from a hamstring injury. I think he scored like 15 goals at Dundee United last season in the SPL. So he's a bit of a statement sign.
It was us and you apparently after him, weren't they? So
apparently so, yeah. Apparently so.
But Bruce was at their stadium, so I quite believe that rumour.
Yeah, well, I mean, inevitably, he's always going to. I think a player like that is always going to get interest. I think he's purpose built for League One as well. Like, given his stature, he's quite a big lad. Something that we've kind of missed in recent years. Pretty excited to see him getting going as well. He's just finding his feet a little bit. He's had some minutes in recent games, and we are looking to strengthen as well. So that squad that you're looking at now will get strengthened even more. There's been lots of rumours circulating over who it might be, or who they might be, but I think it's certainly another centre forward that we're going to be looking at. So, yeah, another signing possibly or two, but again, there's more time needed to allow them to bed themselves in, I think.
Is that why you're at the hotel, just trying to sneak out?
Yeah, looking around. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, no, I'm not that sad. Not anymore. I'm too old for that. There was a time that I've seen like the likes of JJ Kotcher and Alex Juve and Hierro walking through this hotel, but not anymore.
I was going to ask, in terms of people that you mentioned Collins going to MK. I was absolutely shocked that he went there, and I know a lot of Bolton fans were quite critical of him and maybe a bit critical of the club for letting him go. Yeah. Why do you think he went, and how come he couldn't hold on to him? Because as a footballer, I wouldn't swap rivals aside. I wouldn't leave Bolton Wanderers for Mickey Mouse Dons. No chance.
No, I think Shuey didn't like. I mean, this is not factually correct. It's right. Supposedly. I don't think Shuey liked him necessarily as a character, the type of guy that you want in the trenches a little bit to kind of get you through games. Listen, he's a great goal scorer at this level. Never mind League Two, he'll score plenty of goals at that level. But I think he had maybe another 18, 24 months left of his contract, and he got a good, lucrative offer at MK Dons. I think they actually paid him even more money than they were on here, which gives you a bit of an indication as to how much they're throwing at it. And we weren't bothered. Literally, I think if he'd have gone to a League One team, we'd have been like, yeah, fair enough. He's a goal scorer, but again, he's not the type of lad you want in the trenches with you when you're trying to fight to get out of this godforsaken division. His goals aren't enough, basically, or weren't enough, is what I'm saying. Okay.
And the other question I wanted to ask you was about Schumacher himself. So, obviously, Ian Evatt nearly got you to where you wanted to be, but very quickly, or it kind of gradually, he fell out of favour and the relationship was soured. But I wanted to know what the key differences are between Ian Evatt's time and how we think Schumacher's developing, and was Ian Evatt as bad as he was painted towards the end?
No, listen, I think what over time, Bolton fans will reflect. I think in the moment, obviously, people get themselves a little bit carried away and like emotional with the whole situation. He left it a little bit too late before leaving. I think that's important to recognise that. I think we should have a lot more respect for the job that he did with us. His biggest downfall was his inability to be able to manage the fan base. He was a little bit too passionate for his own good. His heart was on his sleeve a little bit too much. And the big differences between the two of them is Shuey's, if you didn't know, he's got a degree in journalism. So it allows him to be able to be more measured in his responses. And when you've got a fan base like this, who obviously is quite a large one, and every word is kind of scrutinized on social media or whatever it might be even in the streets or whatever, it takes a certain type of character to be able to manage that fan base. And I think that was Ian Evatt's biggest downfall, really. But what I would say to you is, and I think inevitably, quite sad that, inevitably, I think he'll end up at your place, if I'm honest. And I think when he does, or if he does, he will be a different type of manager to what he was here, because I think he'll learn by his mistakes. And I think it would be a good fit for you guys. I think he'd have to adapt a little bit tactically as well. I don't think you lads would be too inawed by the consistent amount of playing out from the back that he kind of stuck with at our place. So I think if he adapted, I think he could potentially be a good manager at a club like Blackpool. I think it's a good fit.
I before Bruce, I desperately wanted Wellens and another ex-player, of course, Evo. We wanted him before Critchley, so I think those two managers are on my wish list. And I'm not all for ex-players just returning to the club. I know some of the fan base despise it, but you look down the list of available managers. Yeah, unless you're going to go out and get Wellens and pay his new contract out, and he move his family back from London to Blackpool again. I think he's available. And he probably would walk in immediately. I know he wanted a job before as well. So
I think, sorry to interrupt you, Tom. I think with Ian Evatt as well, I think he most certainly will learn from his mistakes. I can assure you guys of that. And I think if I was a Blackpool fan, I'd be pretty happy with that, because I think people don't really realise what he actually did as a Bolton manager as well, and what he actually achieved. He got us promoted. I know, obviously, League 2 to League 1, it's the minimum expectation, but he still had to produce a result, and he did that. He kept us punching in that kind of top 6 for a good few seasons, and he won us some silverware. I know it's that stupid tin pot pathetic trophy, but still, it was a day out, and it's silverware in it, in the coffers type of thing. So I think he'd be a good manager for you, if I'm honest.
Sean said we've still got Bruce, and I'm happy with him, and as am I. Just proceeding some better team selections, and obviously the players bucking up their ideas as we discussed in the first half an hour of it. But just talk to the It's Not Orange listeners and the Blackpool fans about your setup, because you've obviously gone away from the fluid 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 that you played under Mr. Evatt, and now you kind of seem to have a few strings to your bow, but predominantly, by the looks of things, and I watched you on telly the other night, it seems more like a 4-2-3-1, but you've got the ability to adapt during games as well, which you do.
Yeah, 4-2-3-1's absolutely spot on. I think there's a heavy focus on the wingers as well. I think a lot of that stems from the fact that we tend to have, or we did have in the last couple of games, kind of 2 6s, with Ethan Arahan and Javi Simons that we've signed from Hull. 2 very competent footballers, 2 very talented footballers, but it lacked a little bit of forward creativity. So therefore meaning that there's a heavy reliance upon the wingers. However, we do have the ability, like I said before, to bring in Sheehan or Morley, who gives you that something a little bit different. And them 2 did that at the weekend, so that allows then creativity from the deeper areas, which then frees up a McAtee or one of the other number 10s that we've got, who can kind of play in that pocket and behind the forward. So Randall, exactly. I like Randall, who we signed from Posh. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Joe Randall as well, and he's like one of them number 10s that I've just referenced. So very, very creative, likable player, but unlikable at the same time, because he especially away from home, he doesn't really offer you that much. But certainly when he's playing in front of 20,000 there, is a good player to have on your team. Absolutely.
I tapped my head, Marty. You look confused straight after, because it's a team that use their wingers with effect and create chances, rather than playing it around the back and then going really long and to a 6'1" striker.
Or sign wingers and don't play them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know too much about the lads that you sign, but what I would say is when you use a winger, you have to have a winger that's worth using. And Mario Kozidubri, we signed from Brighton on loan, he's far too good for this level, levels above. How he's playing or why he's playing at League 1, I really don't know.
We had this with Adela Fire last year, the right back that inevitably went to someone we won't name on the podcast, but he's obviously now playing in the Championship and down the road, and he was a joke at League 1. He'd bodied 2 or 3 men and just crack on with the ball while they dangle off his feet, the comeback type thing. And I've already watched Kozidubri a few times, not only during pre-season, but highlights, etc. Is always just frightening.
Not the big lad up too much, but I feel very similar to, obviously we've had the likes of James Trafford and Conor Bradley and Paris Magoma in recent years on loan from Premier League teams, and he certainly fits into that category in terms of potential to play at the top level. And it wouldn't really surprise me if he made it in a few years, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we've already spoken a lot about your squad, but just talk to us about who you think is going to make the difference on Saturday. Maybe aside from who we've spoken about, like Ozzy Dewberry, etc., who's been a decent performer through the spine of your team this year, and feel free to name a few. And obviously, we'll see if they light up the pitch on Saturday or what we can do to stop them.
Yeah, I think Mason Burstow is someone that I'd like to mention. I think he's a very competent centre forward at this level. Back to goal works very good, brings players into play. He uses the ball really well. He's obviously got a couple of goals so far this season as well. So he's certainly a centre forward that I'd be wary of if I were Blackpool. You've got Thierry Gale, who's due a good game as well. We signed in the summer. I can't remember the club, but some random European club. But he's got a lot of talent from the Barbados, the left winger. Obviously, you've mentioned Sissoko already, who's dangerous. We've got a lot of dangerous players. It just needs to click, Tom. And again, I'm not confident that it'll be clicking on Saturday because I've been to your place many a times, even when we've had the likes of Daniel Sturridge playing for us and Jack Wilshere and stuff, and we never seem to get a result. So yeah, I think I'll probably take a draw now again, if I'm honest.
How do you think Blackpool can if you've got a weakness? I saw you guys against Stockport the first day of the season,
yeah,
and I thought what an sort of potentially exciting attacking side, but there was a soft underbelly on that occasion. I haven't seen you since, I've got to admit, and obviously you haven't been really turned over like we have a couple of times. But where do you think? Where do you think that there are some weaknesses that we could get at, providing that we're good enough to maybe approach it that way?
Yeah, so as good as Mario Dewberry is from an attacking perspective, he's okay defensively, but the weak link of our team is behind him in the right back area. Josh Dekus-Cogley is an okay right back at League One level. He's somewhat of a scapegoat. I think he's a 6 out of 10 man every week. Right. But I think if you are going to have success down the right or right back, or even potentially down the left as our left back. So Max Conway, you might see is probably a name that you're not too familiar with. He's come through our academy, he's like 19, 20, 21 at the most year old. Obviously a bit wet behind the ears type of thing. And he's learning a little bit. He's putting some really, really good performances, Martin. Really, really good. Very impressive for a young lad. But again, certain situations, he can let himself down because he's learning a little bit. So maybe the fullback area is a long way of answering your question, Martin.
Yeah, okay. Oh, well, let's hope we play that way.
So he's put Bloxham field day. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see what changes he made. Probably none. So yeah. Any questions for us, Cole?
No, I'm just curious, really. Obviously, I know you've not really had a great start to the season. I mean, Steve Bruce has been kind of heavily backed, hasn't he, in the summer. I'm just curious to kind of understand what it seems ridiculous saying this 4 or 5 games into a season, but what's kind of gone wrong? Why isn't it going as well as you'd have probably hoped?
I'll go then, Mark. Give his like. Cut a long story short, we started with a body blow against Stevenage. What happened in that game has continued and hasn't stopped, unfortunately. We looked really good. Honeyman got a fantastic goal. Then we conceded a horrific goal with Horsfall passing it back. He was playing with an injury. It's come to light that he didn't let any of the physios or management team know. They didn't pick it up really, which is frustrating. But we've had a Heckway come in, and although he's won multiple promotions, he just looks powder puff at the back, which is frustrating, and they're not very cohesive. Right. Played a centre midfielder at right back in Jordan Brown, who was a very successful part of Leyton Orient's side, and we're really excited to sign him.
Yep.
We've just conceded really sloppy goals, and he's picked 2 or 3 different formations already, so he doesn't really know what system to play. His signed wingers that he's not playing. Signed Hansen from Birmingham, Ebaway from Palace. and he's
why isn't he playing them
playing
type of
CJ
players?
Hamilton there, who, if I'm honest, he's just not very good. He's beyond poor at defending, and he's just very quick, but he doesn't utilise his pace very well. We've got George Honeyman, who's a catalyst for the side, and Joe Taylor, who's just cost, just shy of over $1 million. But we just don't really know how to use the ball, and therefore it looks a mess. So therefore there's no light at the end of the tunnel for me. Huddersfield was a great game at home, but really we didn't dominate. Obviously the first half it was very end to end, and in the second half we had to defend for literally 60 minutes since Ennis got sent off. So he's not there for Saturday, and he's been a real shining light of this team. And we've had quite a few injuries throughout the squad as well, with Danny Imre at right back from Palace, who's phenomenal by every stretch of imagination. Hopefully he's back for Saturday. So it hasn't clicked, but we also don't know what is the right team and the right formation, etc. So it hasn't felt like a nice season, because we've conceded, 10 set pieces now after Mansfield Martin. And then Saturday.
Give me a detailed answer to my question, Tom, so I appreciate that. I just kind of flip it around a little bit for Martin, just kind of rephrase the question a little bit. Clearly there's been a bit of investment this summer, which is a surprise to an extent, from the outside looking in, because you said clearly spent a bit of money. What's the expectation for the season, what the remainder of the season in the summer?
Well, I mean, pre-season, looking at the investment, it started really well with getting Horsfall and Heckway, and especially Horsfall. I was so impressed that we nicked Stockport's captain, sort of thing we never do. And I think as time went on with the players that we signed, getting Ennis back, etc., and then obviously we signed, a £1 million striker from Forest in Dale Taylor. The minimum expectation was playoffs, and it still should be, no matter who's in charge, because not many teams. I don't think there'll be any more than 3-4 teams that have spent in the final reckoning will have spent more money than us. I think we spent about £2 million on fees, but also some of our wages are very, very competitive for this league. And our criticism of the club has always been that they've talked a good game, but maybe not really kind of invested when it mattered, because the owners had a bit of a battering, with his business, sort of his hedge fund collapsed in Hong Kong. He had to kind of close it all down, so etc. etc. But he obviously trusts Bruce, or has trusted Bruce since he's appointed him and backed him to the hilt, I think, and potentially more to come. I don't know. So the minimum expectation's got to be playoffs, because you don't spend £1 million on a striker in League One and a few other players and be happy with 10th, do you? You absolutely don't.
Well,
the league where nobody's got any money.
It's funny you should say that. I mean, listen, you don't need me to tell you this, Martin, but spending money doesn't necessarily mean success. I'll vouch.
No,
I'll vouch that for last season with us. We spent.
It's the type of players we've bought, though. We've bought Horsfall, Heckway, Honeyman. All these players that you expect to bring some life and experience into the team. We actually look, if I'm honest, we look worse than last season.
So that's hence why I guess people are pointing fingers at Bruce. Then I would suspect
Bruce and the players. I didn't expect this start first and foremost, but also didn't expect the players to play like they're playing in the Virtue Trophy every week. If I'm honest, it just doesn't feel like they're playing for the shirt, bar Ennis, Fletcher, and Honeyman, and a few other players. But on the bulk of it, 6 or 7 of them just feel like they're letting the team down a little bit and letting the club down. And the travelling fans have been to Exeter or Plymouth already and seen the ship 5 goals in their stadium. So
it feels a little bit similar to where we were last season, if I'm honest. Like we even seem to be in like a bit of a transition to an extent. Like we spent quite a lot of money on like John McAtee and Joe Randall and Savage. It's probably off the top of my head, there's like £3 million we spent, and we ended up finishing 9th.
Yeah.
So it's like signing the right players is so important, isn't it? You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that could be right. It only takes 2 changes to make us look more fluid. And I think Imre coming in, and he was very good on Saturday. Martin is very positive. I think he was in the final third in the last 20 minutes about 4 or 5 times, creating chances and had a shot. Yeah. So I think he adds a bit of depth to the team. But I think Saturday, once again, like Huddersfield, is the perfect time. 1, Bloomfield Road. 2, big side coming. 3, local derby. 4, if we do lose, which is probably your highest possible chance in many a year, Cole. We'll say highest chance, but highest expected win with the way we just haven't got going yet. Whereas like I said, you're not getting started, is still playing very cohesively, just not scoring many goals.
Yeah.
I think it's a big opportunity for you, but if we can show Bloomfield Road what we're all about and it looks a bit different, then great. We can really kick on after the international break, but lose and it genuinely, as much as I hate to say it, because I love Steve Bruce to pieces, it could be curtains.
The irony of that, could you imagine we beat you on Saturday, Bruce gets a boot, and then you get Ian Everton next week as your new manager? That's how football happens sometimes.
Yeah. Martin, sorry, what were you going to say before we wrap up?
No, I was going to say, I think what everyone loved about it, because obviously we had Neil Critchley, Mark II, and he was very rigid. He played this 3 at the back that everyone hated. He wouldn't deviate from it. We did really, really well at home, and we were pretty awful away, and we finished just short of the playoffs. He gets sacked 2 games into the next season, and then Bruce comes in and he's very honest straight away and says, "I'm going to play 4-4-2. It's a bit old school, 2 up top, 2 wingers," and his simplicity kind of, I think it took a lot of people by surprise, probably including a lot of the opposition. I think what's happened now, though, is we had to start the season without that formation because we didn't have any wingers at the time. We've obviously added to the squad now, but I've looked at Bruce over the years and gone back and looked at sort of how his teams have shaped up. And my criticism of him now, though, is that when it's all right when it's going well, as soon as it starts going badly, he gets very, very cautious. He did it in Newcastle, and maybe that's a different kettle of fish because he had to keep them up no matter what. But he also did it at West Brom, and it was a train wreck. And my worry is that he's lost confidence in what he's doing, and the players haven't bought into it, and he's just gone backwards a little bit. He's a bit too cautious, and I think maybe he needs to just look at how we were doing last season when we were going to like Charlton and Huddersfield and beating teams, and he needs to kind of get that belief back in the squad. I don't know. It's a tricky one.
One question there for you, Cole.
Your former goalkeeper, who is now at Barnsley, goalkeeping coach, Matt Gilks, was one of his coaches. The other 2 guys, the names passed me by, I must admit. But
even Craney?
Craney was involved towards the latter end. Yeah, he was. So was... I'm trying to think who they were.
Brett Ormrod was your kit man.
Brett Ormrod was a kit man for a little bit, yeah.
All right.
Towards the end.
Lewis Duckmanton? Is that him?
No, I'm not sure on that one. I'd imagine, though, that whoever they are, with the exception of, I think, Jokes, because obviously I think he's pretty happy at Barnsley, you'd probably get the band back together. I would expect if he was.
Peter Atherton was apparently...
Peter Atherton, that's correct.
Oh, yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Not to know too much about him apart from Gilksy. But,
listen, like I said, he did a great job with us, and if it did happen, if I was a Blackpool fan, I'd be pretty pleased because he did well. He got us in and around that kind of top 6 mix. And to be honest with you, the season before last, we probably should have finished second, if I'm honest. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. But yeah, he's a good manager at this level. He'd do all right. I think Bolton fans need to put a bit of respect on his name. I was heavily critical with him towards the end of his tenure, but my frustration came from the fact that he should have left earlier and the club didn't accept supposed resignation.
He had a good relationship, didn't he, with Sharon, didn't he?
He did, yeah, he absolutely did, and that's admirable. A lot can be said for that in this day and age.
Absolutely.
But, like I said, he should have left a little bit earlier, and he wore his heart on his sleeve a bit too much for a club like this, and he said things and acted in a way that was always going to get scrutinised. So, yeah, that's probably why it ended so sourly, I think.
Right, going to call that pod, mate. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us insight to Shuey's side this season. And
pleasure.
Yeah, it should be a good game Saturday. Like someone said, the weather's off, as it always is up north. I think it'll be a cracking game on Saturday. A local derby, big crowd, crap weather, form goes out the window in these games. I think there will be a lot of goals.
Always frustrates me with I live in Southport. And I can see Blackpool. I can see Blackpool from almost my bedroom window. And
I can see Southport from here. I live in St Anne's.
Yeah, it takes me an hour to get there at least. It drives me insane. I always just had a little boat. I could just, set off across the water. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate it. Hopefully it's a good game and Blackpool could pick up 3 points. But we'll be back next week to analyse this game. But for now, Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for the plethora of comments we've got this evening. It was fantastic that you got all involved, and we'll definitely see you again soon. Bye
Thanks
for
for having
now.
me on, guys. Cheers.